Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Tia and Jill. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the week.
Yes. Welcome to the week. We are here in the States. We're, a week and a half away from some holiday time. So the holidays are kicking up, right?
They are, right? That's kind of just around the corner.
And we are in reset mode this week, going into the new year, because that's important, right?
Yeah, and it's easier to start thinking about it now than when the new year's upon you and you're like, what is happening?
Yes. So welcome to Real Talk by Catalyst Food Leaders, where we have honest conversations to lead people forward in food. And if this is your first time with us, I'm Tia and this is Jill. And this episode is about what food leaders are letting go of. We are talking about the habits, beliefs, and behaviors that leaders in food know aren't working. And now it's time to release them.
Yeah, and I think, even as we started, we said these are the things that are important as you go into the next year
Mm-hmm.
because we need to really ask ourselves, like, what are we still holding on to that's no longer serving us?
Yes. Yeah.
We go through these cycles of, we're going to talk about it, of these creating, I'm going to say pain cycles in our own life.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have agency to let go of those.
Mm-hmm.
And as leaders, becoming a leader doesn't always start with setting more goals. Sometimes it actually starts with letting go and
Mm-hmm.
releasing what doesn't work. And that
Mm-hmm.
can be a goal in itself.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so we're excited to have you here either watching or listening to the show this week.
Yes, we are. And we know this is a top issue for people because we see it, right? We see it with our
Mhm.
clients on just that point of how do I let go? Or many times people don't even know they're holding on, they're holding on to something.
Right. At least not to the degree that they recognize.
So to kick us off in our What's Trending, we actually wanted to kick off with a video from Simon Sinek, and he talks about leaders letting go. So I am going to share my screen really quickly. Let's see. I had it all teed up.
Yeah, bring Simon on in.
There we go. Okay. Okay, here's the clip.
One of the most difficult things to do for a leader is to let go. Because at the end of the day, we trust ourselves. Sometimes we say things like, well, I'm just going to do a better job, so why don't I just do it? But the problem is we're making the whole business reliant on us. And that's a weak business. That's power of personality. That's not a strong business. I'll give you an example. David Marquet, it's the second time we've invoked him, the submarine driver, the submarine captain, talked about how on his submarine, they had one guy who was the best guy at parking the submarine. He was gifted in parking submarines. And so whenever they came into port and they needed to park the submarine, guess who they got to park the submarine? And then it occurred to the captain once that what if he's sick? What if he can't do it? I have a problem. And so he asked somebody else to park the submarine. And here's the problem. Didn't go well. And so the temptation is to go back and ask the best submarine parker to do it again. But he didn't. He waited and he let the new guy try again and again and again until he became an expert submarine parker. And then guess what they did? They asked for a third guy to do it. And what they're doing is building a bench. And we sometimes are that submarine parker. We know we're the best at it. We've been doing it longer than everybody else. We usually care more than everybody else. And so the question is how do you have the patience to let somebody fall and try again, fall and try again, and fall and try again? What will give them the motivation to try again is that they know that we're in their corner cheering them on. It is very hard. I'm not going to lie, but it is essential if you want to build a scalable business.
All right.
Right. Letting go. And the specific example in here really is more about letting go of like work and things you're doing. I think that's definitely the tangible part that people sense in this industry. Like, can I let go of, running that report or doing this when we have startup or being in this meeting? So I love that. But I also like the things we're going to talk about today that are kind of the underlying things that lead into those.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out in his clip, he's definitely talking about the things that I think get people into firefighting, right? Like, I feel like I need to be there. I feel like I'm the best person for it. I haven't really spent the time to build my bench strength. So no one else can do this type of work. And I like that he called out, have the patience to make sure that people are building these skills. But the thing that really stood out to me was he said, if you're not actually letting things go, and in this case, he's talking about letting maybe even tasks go so other people can do them, is that you're built on the power of personality. And this made me think about leaders and leadership, because in organizations, sometimes we're like, oh, this is a great culture. We have such a great leader. But they're the only leader in the organization that will do well on this team. There's no building of the team around their leadership skills, right? Jill, I think you talk about this a lot, on how we just focus on our high performers, and those are the ones we're building leadership skills around. But what if your high performer's sick or out or wants a new opportunity and now you need to promote them, right? Which organizations struggle with promoting some high performers because they want them to stay in that role because they're great at it. But it's because you haven't actually built up the skills of people around them. And so it's almost like this false sense of culture, where it's like, our culture is so great, but it's not. It's built on one personality or a few leaders in the organization that just so happen to mold together, work well together. What happens if someone new comes in?
Yeah, that in itself is business risk. Because we've all seen examples where people are like, oh, somebody left the company and oh my gosh, how are we going to go on?
Right.
Oh, now everything seems miserable and this uncertainty. And there's an aspect of that is just, part of change management and the change process. But part of it is that built upon, like you said, a personality.
Yeah.
If the rest of the culture isn't there, you should be able to swap people in and out, essentially, and not have it disrupt people's lives.
Right.
That would be the ideal culture, where we're sad to see someone go, but we're happy for what they have next. And we know we're going to be okay.
Yeah. And we know that people shift, right? Even if it's for promotion within the organization and they're not leaving, right? We're going to still see them. That shift sometimes is just so disruptive, because really the culture of that team is built around that leader, versus, like you said, equipping people so that if you need to move someone out, right, they have those leadership skills to lead that team, but they're building on the technical aspects. That's why they need this role, right? That's how they're growing themselves. And we miss that. And many times, I mean, we've talked to the organizations where they're like, 20 years ago, our culture was great, right? Or what people use the example or the excuse of COVID. Well, pre-COVID, we were awesome. Post-COVID, not so much, right? And it's because we haven't really developed these leadership skills to be able to manage change, to be able to manage conflict, to be able to manage people's personal lives, right? Like, COVID disrupted not just work, but it disrupted our lives so much. If you're not a leader that know how to manage that and still bring out the best in people, you probably struggled and probably still struggling.
Yeah. And I think that really goes into, obviously we want to talk a little bit about the things where we need growth, but to be able to have growth, you have to create space. To create space, you have to let go.
Yes. Yes.
We only have so much time, energy, resources available to us. So we need to be strategic in how we think about moving those forward. And before we go into the next segment, I can't not say anything about the submarine and talking about Darren. It's a great shout out to Darren. And now I'm really curious, how do you park a submarine? So we may have to ping him later and, get his thoughts on that.
That is so true. That's hilarious. We should do like a side segment with Darren to see what do you think about this clip, right? And how many people around you knew how to park the submarine?
Right. Is that like, everybody? Like that's just a part of the skill set, or is it really like one person?
Right.
I'm really curious. And I didn't even realize you'd actually have to park a submarine. Like,
right.
I don't
Which
know. I guess so. Yeah,
makes sense.
I guess.
But those are the things we haven't had to think about. But Darren can maybe answer those questions.
Yes. But for now, we're going to let go of that so we could talk about the other things.
Ooh, I love that. Right. Yes. And, as we think about, we talked about a few things. Obviously, Simon kind of talked about letting go of like tasks, right? We talked about even equipping people with leadership skills so that they can let go of tasks, right? So their culture is not built around personality. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things as leaders, and maybe even you listening or watching today, that you're thinking, okay, I know I need to let go of something, right? Because we know to grow, you have to give up something. Mm-hmm. Right. The question is, what's worth releasing?
Yeah. And I think it would be great if you're with us live, or even if you're on replay or a podcast, drop in the chat. What's one thing isn't working, but feels hard to let go of? Mm-hmm. Like, what might that be?
Mm-hmm. One of the common ones that I see, especially as we talk to clients, is this false urgency. Oh. This false urgency of everything is important, everything is urgent.
Yeah. And I mean, whether I'm here in this space together with us or seeing it, like thinking back to my days, like working in corporate, it's the classic, like, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. Like, that's the classic, like, there is no actual urgency.
Right. Yes. And we see it, right? The hurry up and, especially the requests, right? The requests come in, I need this today by end of business day. You get it done, right? And then nothing happens for weeks, right? And I think from the person that's been asked, right, to get this information done, right, you're on this urgency sort of like high where you're like getting stuff done. And then you turn it in and then nothing for weeks. And when I think about how does that make me feel, right? Like my time wasn't really worth much, right? Or, I probably didn't have enough information. Why is the deadline so quick for me, but then we don't really use this information? I think as leaders, when we tell our team over and over that the things that we're requesting is urgent, you're really communicating to your team that their time is not important. Yeah. And the thing that they have going on is not as important as the things you need to get done.
Yeah. I think those subtle messages are really important. Mm-hmm. And it's more about like being respectful of people's time and understanding what they have going on versus, oh my gosh, I need you to drop everything and do this for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we get that comes up. Mm-hmm. I mean, right? No joke. That comes up, and there are times, but it's typically, I think about how often we're looking to be people pleasers. Yeah. And we feel like we need to have information right away before we pause and ask better questions. Yeah. Like, what will we do when we have this? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the possible options? Does this actually help us make the next decision, or is it just busy work until we figure out what the next step is?
Right. Yes. And I feel like some people think about, when they think about this thing of false urgency, instead of like letting it go, they make an excuse of, well, that's just the way that we work here, right? That's just our culture. We like to move fast. We like to do this. We like to do that, right? But in reality, you're not actually moving fast. You're just creating this false sense of urgency so people can either give you information or feel like they're doing something. Sometimes I don't even really understand, like, why the sense of urgency? Like, why is this so urgent right now? Why do we not spend time planning around it so that we don't make the mistakes that we saw last year or the years before, right? And people hide behind, well, that's just how we do work. When in reality, we should be thinking about, is this something that I need to let go? Yeah.
And once again, I'm going to go back to the whole respect thing, because every time we do that typically kicks in some amount of like response in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like cortisol and
Yes.
adrenaline and like these things that kick off. And those are the things that, yep, they can be no hormones or no chemical reactions are bad. But we all know those are the things that contribute to, baseline stress levels.
Yes.
So when we are always in this sense of urgency, we are simply creating environments that this baseline stress level is higher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as leaders, we're the ones who need to be able to let go of that so that we give permission to others to let go.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love it that you brought up stress levels too, because I wrote a post over the weekend on LinkedIn around how this is the time that, we've had the most job loss. It's also the time that we have the highest stress. And a piece of that, right, like this job loss is new, that's adding on to the stress. But research shows that we've been living at this heightened level of stress for many, many years. That's very different than before. And I think when we think about it in business and how leaders run in this false sense of urgency, we're creating these situations that's creating this level of stress, and then we're just staying there.
Yeah.
And then eventually we feel like that's baseline for us.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's doing something to our bodies.
It is. And it's also, it's also leading into this culture where people are like, well, we like to be agile and we like to be innovative. And there isn't enough discernment between what does agile mean? What does flexibility mean? What does being innovative mean? Because it doesn't mean urgency.
Right. Yes.
In fact, I think the people who do things really well will say, I couldn't go fast until I could do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we also think of false urgency, it's usually because there's some amount of something went wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that'll probably lead into another one that we think we need to let go of, firefighting.
Yes.
But for us to be able to do things well, we need to have some consistency and flow in what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can start moving fast and be more agile.
Yes, yes. And it does connect with firefighting, right? Many, many times people are firefighting things that they feel like are urgent when it's not, right? Or you need to just be planful so that it doesn't show up as a fire, right? It shows up as this is the normal part of what's coming up next, right? Like we're ready, we have planned, we have resources, right? So it's not a fire. We've either put it out and we don't see it anymore, or we understand that it's a natural part of this process and we're prepared for it.
Yeah, it reminds me that there's several different like quotes or little things I see periodically. Some of them are like, your lack of planning does not mean it's my emergency, or
right.
Some version of that.
Yes, because it's true. I feel like that's what kind of comes up from firefighting. And just thinking about in the food industry, I do think that we're at this point of we feel like that's our normal, is firefighting in this false sense of urgency, when in reality it does not have to be that way, right? Like we don't have to live that way. And actually in great cultures, they don't live that way.
No, because that's just waste. That's like wasted dollars, wasted time. That is all waste. So when we think about that we don't have high enough margins, we're not making enough profit. Well, firefighting is contributing to that.
And I think sometimes it's the underlining piece of what food leaders, right, are letting go. And Simon talked about this, of just these hero habits of I needed to do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, and we explore this in leadership boot camp on what's causing these fighting and helping leaders, right, understand what the root cause is so that they can ultimately let it go. But a piece of that is, why do you need to be involved? Right? What part do you own of this? And really having leaders think through, am I having a hero complex? Right? Or is it something that I really need to be involved in? And intentionally thinking about those things.
Yeah. I think it's one of those spaces as well that we have to really be cognizant of when our ego is kicking in. And I don't mean the ego that's like, I'm so good and bold and all that. But we do have this ego that does pop in and have whispers to us sometimes, like the whole like, well, I'll just do it myself. I could be faster. I can get this done. Or even things like, I kind of like firefighting because I know what I'm doing and I do it well and people appreciate it. it's often helpful to think about what, like, once again, how are these things serving us or not serving us?
Yes. Yes.
And it's okay to, I mean, I've had them too where I'm like, oh, my ego is flaring up in this moment. Like this response, this feeling I'm having is all because my ego is feeling a little bruised or,
All right.
a little picked on. And I have to pause before I am actually reacting versus responding.
Yes. There was another clip I was thinking about using today for our trending, and this neuroscience was talking about how it was basically talking about habits and why they're hard to let go. And she was explaining that she was kind of explaining from like eating
Not
a
sure if
cookie.
Tia is still going or not.
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Or if I'm still going, maybe I'm the one who paused. But the internet's not being great for us today, huh?
Oh no, you're still going on my end. Can
Oh,
you
and
hear
you
me?
were not going on my end. So,
Oh no, can you hear me at least?
well, I can, and now you're back, but all of a sudden
Okay.
it stopped. So,
Okay, good. Well, hopefully the technology behind all of this still sees our videos.
right.
That's the whole thing with technology.
Yeah.
But what I was talking about was this clip I watched of a neuroscience scientist who was saying that she was using this example of when cookies are in front of us, we eat them because that's what we do with cookies, right? And she kind of talked about like when we step into a habit like eating cookies or tying our shoe, we don't actually think about what we're doing. Like we don't think about the steps of tying our shoe. And our brain does this because otherwise we'll be like super overwhelmed if we had to think about like how to tie our shoe or how to drive a car every single time. It's just kind of built into our habits. And she talked about that there needs to be a trigger of like what happens, cookies in front of us, or we need to drive a car, a behavior, right? How you drive or the eating of the cookie. And then there needs to be a reward, right? Driving, you get to where you're going. Cookies, you feel full, right? And satisfied. And so when you talk about like someone who loves firefighting, right? That who's in this like in the trenches, right? We've heard that in the food industry, is that we're actually trying to get to that reward of, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, or the satisfied of, oh, I solved that problem, right? I led that problem, or just think about, even as you're listening, think about those times where, man, you were in this really stressful situation and you keep going back to stress because of what is that reward that you're getting at the end? I think when I think about it, for me, it's like, well, it always works out. And so the feeling of going through this and at the end we have something that works out, right? Sometimes that keeps me in that circle because, hey, it never not worked out before, right? We always find a solution at the end versus like being intentional to say, what habits am I leaning into that I really should let go of that's causing this high stress moment, right? This false sense of urgency, this firefighting, or just, I want to be involved because why? Because I love doing it, right? But really I'm causing chaos for other people.
Yeah, and I think that's an entire, like, we could do an entire episode on that as well, because that is really the root of, like, even why, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, why we use the science of coaching.
Yeah.
Because it is intended for us to have recognition at those different spots so that we can understand, like, well, why do I like all this firefighting? Like, what is it that it gives me? And those are some basic questions you've probably heard if you've read like The Power of Habits or, pick one of the, 2 million, help books, self-help books that talk about how to change habits. But it has to come within. It has to be this intentional awareness of what am I doing and what am I getting and what am I going to choose instead. But it's one of those things that makes it hard for leaders to let go because we're so used to moving at this fast pace at work, just in life, that we don't pause down enough to be like, wait, what's really going on here?
Right. I love it too, Jill, that you related it to innovation and being agile, because like we've sort of made all of that synonymous to urgency. And you're right, it's not.
No, I mean, I would even argue that the companies that are most successful are the ones that, well, you start with a plan and you work the plan. There is, I mean, unless there's something cataclysmic that happens,
right,
you shouldn't be shifting away from the plan. And that even comes into things like, I mean, I'll make it up, but like tariffs. Like Like
Mhm.
we heard that messaging for years. So as a business, that was a risk that you could look out and start going, what will we do when that takes place?
Right.
Did
Yes.
everybody do that? I can't speak to that. But as an organization, like those are the things that help us be better business partners when we can start seeing the things external, sometimes even internal, to have better
Mhm.
awareness. Because if it's
Mhm.
going to disrupt the plan that we know is supposed to create success for us,
Yeah.
then that's all about like, right? That's just risk identification, mitigation.
Right, exactly. And some people might be thinking, okay, yeah, I see the external things happening, and it might be external of the organization or even external of your team. But like I need to like make this perfect before I send it out, right? Or before I have this conversation with another leader, before I start building those plans. But in reality, perfectionism is just kind of stopping us, right?
Yeah, I mean, perfectionism is obviously not real.
Right.
Like that's a standard that is that there is none.
Right.
That's a
Right.
made up term.
It's a made up term, and what it looks like, what perfection looks like in our head,
Oh
is
no, I
also
lost you
made up.
again.
Oh, oh no, can you hear me?
I know it. Gosh, it just keeps coming up and down. So
This is what happens when you do things live, right?
I guess so.
You
That's just where
cannot
we are
affect,
today.
you cannot what expect professional perfectionism.
Nope, we can't. But I think that's one of the things that as leaders, especially as technical leaders, because we are used to like having very specific things and specific answers. And
Mhm.
even though we're like, gosh, we can deal well with unknown. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of scientists who really don't deal with unknown that well
Right,
in the stuff that's in front of them.
right, yes,
Conceptually unknown, no problem. But the
right,
things in front of us, I think
problem.
that's not so easy. That's a problem. So letting go of, gosh, I have to know all the things.
It's one of the reasons why leadership is so hard for technical people.
Mhm.
Is because we struggle with the unknown, and the biggest unknown is human behavior.
Mhm.
That's like the biggest unknown. You really don't know how people are going to respond. You can get pretty good at learning them and understanding clues and all of these things, but you really don't know how people are going to respond to things. And so in order to get to a place that you understand that and are able to set clear expectations or able to move forward and work the plan, you have to be planful, you have to be intentional, and you have to have conversations. And all of that stems down to leadership skills, right? You have to have these leadership skills in order to prepare for these things. And I mean, let's be honest, it's the reason why Callus exists. We're not that great at leadership skills because most of us don't get any type of training until we are a leader. And then
Usually
all of a
senior
sudden,
leaders.
right, senior leaders, right. And by that time, how many people have we, how many cultures have we created that's poor? How many people have we, really just got off base because we weren't great leaders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a great point. And I think that's part of why this letting go and
Mm-hmm.
even letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about how we're showing up or how we think people are experiencing us.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are worth examining what needs to be let go.
Yes, yes. And as we go through this next part where we are going to help you really think about, how do I start to let things go? We want you to ask yourself, what is worth releasing? What do you need to release going into 2026 as you think about the type of leader you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also leads into people are like, I think we're logically we can think about letting go. Like, gosh, that
Mhm.
shouldn't be that hard. But it is extremely hard. And
It is.
that's really why even today, as we like go into this, we want to tell you a little bit about the catalyst method
Mhm.
because people often ask us, well, like, what do you all do different to help people let go or to help people be better leaders that others don't? And this is a framework that we have been using since the beginning. It's
Mhm.
proven, it's people first, and it is developed for us here in the food industry. And this is really about helping people move from these, like Tia was talking about, these reactive habits where we just let the neurons keep firing and we don't intervene, to be very intentional.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
leadership and success is about being intentional. And the part that's really fantastic about that is when we are intentional, we're also creating more sustainable outcomes.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when we think about our method, right? Our Catalyst method, it is built on the things that we have been talking about: behavior science, coaching psychology, and
Mhm.
decades of experience in the food industry. And we've, like Jill said, we've been using this structure in all of our programs, from our reset week that's happening this week, which we hope
Yep.
you join us,
Hope you come back.
as well as our leadership development programs, from boot camp to strategic leader, our workshops. Really, we build this science into the way that we overcome these habits, become better leaders, because we know what's happening around habits and how we show up. That is science.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that is very unique about what we do. We have
Mhm.
taken these things that are all theory, like even as we talk about food safety culture, there's like, the maturity maps, and that's a theory. There's
Mhm.
adult, human behavior, which is a theory. And coaching, the science of coaching and coaching psychology is really about making the change happen.
Right.
And that's what
Yeah.
we do. This isn't just about theory. This is the Catalyst method that we have done with clients. And if you're out there, like, give us a thumbs up, because, right, you've experienced how real change happens.
It's moving, yeah, from this theory to action, right? To something that's actually
Totally. Oh,
practical.
and our technology, of course, is doing
Oh,
its thing again.
oh no, oh no. Yeah. Am I back?
Yep, you're back.
Okay. Yeah, we move from this theory to action, right? How this practical application. That's how we like to talk about it, especially as we think about like culture and leadership. And like, yes, we know we need to let go. We know we need to do these things. We know even what we might want to release. But the action of doing it, that's the work, right? And at Catalyst, we really focus on the work, because we want to actually see leaders advance. Not just download the theory and understand how it works, but how do you show up every day, right? How do you
Yeah.
shift your behaviors? How do you shift others' behaviors?
And I love it. Last week, I was having a coaching check-in with a boot camp alumni. Well, they finished boot camp a year and a half. They were in it a year and a half ago. So they finished, well, they had started like 2 years ago almost. And he was telling me about like the tools that he still uses on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is the part that's the magic.
Yes.
And it all started because he had this spark. I'm going to use our terms here, right? This spark of self-awareness to be like, I keep getting stuck with my team members at this
Yeah.
space, in this spot. What do I
Yes.
need to do different?
Yes. And that's really where the method starts, right? It starts in this first phase of spark, where you really are gaining this self-awareness, where you really pause long enough to notice where you're stuck. What's preventing you from moving forward? You might know all of these things, you might not, right? Like, people that come into boot camp, that come into strategic, they are really at all levels of the leadership journey, right? They're in different parts. It shows in different ways. One great thing about our program is that it meets you where you are, right? So you can really, it's very personal, right? Like, these are things that our clients tell us, while they're in the program and even afterwards, where everyone is in different places, but it is so personal to what you have going on. And it's really because of this first phase of Spark, where we really dive deep into who you are and how do you even notice what's happening with yourself, with your mind, with your self-talk, with all the things that we've talked about, even on Real Talk over the years.
Yeah, and I would say, even with this, it's not just noticing you, but also, we talk about in the 3 dimensions. It's you, your team, and your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so even Spark is the place where you're like, maybe as we talked about firefighting, you were like, I need to let go of that.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that can be the thing that sparks the awareness to be like, I just can't sustain that any longer. Like, I need to make a meaningful change around that.
Yes.
And, my shameless plug, if you are saying that right now, then Reset Week starts tomorrow.
Yes.
So just go on out to catalystfoodleaders.com/reset-week, or pick any of our posts lately. They all have links to it.
Yes.
But it's this 3-day, 3 sessions. It's free. And our goal is to help you all spark. Like, where are you at, so that you can start putting plans in place?
This is the work. This is the preparation part, the intentional preparation, so that when you do set your goals, right? When you do start to look ahead and start to think about how do I shift, which is the next phase, right? You are planful, you're intentional, because we know, we talked about it earlier, right? Habits are built into our brain. It's how our brain says, hey, I don't need to think about that. I don't need to concern myself with this. I know what we're going to do. And to break that, you have to be intentional. That's where Spark comes in.
Absolutely. And Spark is the place. It's the catalyst to help you move to the next spot. And that's really like thinking about how do you shift. So as we think about these habits and how do we break up those, once again, those neurons that are firing so fast, we need to create something to help those pause.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean every time it happens, like I'm training my new dog, I got a clicker, click, click, click. Not that. But it's deep, thoughtful questions so that you can understand, like, what's taking me down this path? Like, what are alternate ways that I would prefer to go or that serve me better? Because, we always say change starts with you, number one. That's not something we made up. But if you're looking around and you're thinking, gosh, my team, like we could work better as a team, or gosh, our organization could work better. Like you have to be in this spot where you're willing to shift.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to shift and do some of that work, then welcome to where you are right now.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And that's okay. Not everybody is ready to move to the next spot, but if you're,
true.
but you also have to be aware and realistic about like, am I doing work to actually move forward? Excuse me, or just letting my brain play this story that I think I'm making change and moving forward.
Yes. And such good points, because shift is really where you do the work, right? And depending on where you are, if you're ready, if you're not, if you thought you were ready, if things get scary, right? Like shift is where you figure that out, right?
Yeah.
And you keep pushing through. And why coaching is so important and having an accountability partner, and really what we serve for our clients are those things, right? That they can do that work. And even when it feels like, oh, this is not really working, let's explore other ways, right? Like many of you all have talked about, like, or have talked with us around learning the material, right? But then practice and reflecting on it. Didn't work, let's practice again. Let's reflect on it. Let's do it in different scenarios. This is when behaviors start to shift. But we know the first time you try it, it probably won't be great. Right. I love when Simon Sinek said the first time the submarine operator, the second one came in and parked it, it actually wasn't that great. But leaders have to have the patience to allow their team to thrive. And that's what happens in shift.
Yeah. And as humans, we also need to be able to give ourselves some grace and know that these habits we've already created for years probably aren't going to shift overnight. And there's going to be periods, and I've done this, where I'm like, wow, I thought I had that covered. And then like a month or two later or 6 months later, I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing that thing again.
Right.
I didn't even realize I drifted. How do I get back to where I need to be? And typically when that does happen, it's because I wasn't creating space to be intentional.
Right. Yes.
I was thinking, check the box. I got that one done. Keep going.
Right. Done. Learned it.
Yep. I did it a few times, got it mastered, when the reality is I was doing well, but because I left my focus, moved from it, I quit working the plan. I didn't get the outcome.
Or people, we see this with people who feel like they're great leaders, is that they were a great leader. They've been living in this bubble of the space of, ooh, I'm so great. But people around them have changed, right?
Oh, gosh,
people
yes.
have moved in and out.
Other things have shifted
Other
around
things have shifted, right? So the way they lead now no longer connects with the new audience that they have.
Yeah.
Shift is when you do that work, right, around it. I remember I sat on this webinar, I think it was a Gartner webinar, and the woman that was given that was facilitating it said that, I'm paraphrasing, but she said that culture change is not hard. The hard part is patience and perseverance, right? We have to have the patience with ourselves, with our team, even with our organization, and the perseverance to push through those times that people just aren't getting it. Or we've said it multiple times. I kind of think about having a toddler, right? You say it multiple times, and still don't get it. And obviously their brains are still developing in different ways than adults. But when you think about adult learning, it's the same thing, right? It's the same way where people have to be told over and over. We have to be told over and over until we get it right. And then again, I love your example, Jill. Even then, we still need intentional reminders. Am I leading in the best way? What has shifted around me that I need to shift with it? You need to have those intentional touch points. It's one of the reasons why we created enrichment, right? Those monthly touch bases for leaders to come in and think about, what am I doing? And am I being intentional about it? And what do I need to shift?
Yeah, and this is the part as well with the coaching that we use, and the science of coaching, the psychology of coaching is all around understanding, like, what were the things that made us choose to go this way versus that way.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not about judgment, like, oh my gosh, I did that. That's horrible. It's like, cool, recognize it. And now be in a spot where you get to like write the next lines of the story how you want them to go.
Yes.
And I think it's really important because you may be listening. I know sometimes we're kind of like, look at things change and people haven't changed. But you know what? Everybody can be a better leader. Whether it's I have direct reports or I don't. We talk about this on a regular basis, that even if I am in a spot where I'm an individual contributor, you are interacting with people around you. And the way you step up and to own what you're doing and have the agency in your role is leading.
Yes. I want people to hear that, right? Like, you do not have to be a manager of people, right? You are a leader in an organization. It's actually the reason why your organization hired you, is to be a leader in the organization.
Ooh, I just had the internet blurp again.
Oh no.
I think Tia's coming back. There she is.
Hey, I'm here. I'm here, out here in space.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, like, even as an individual contributor, leadership is part of what you do. And there is an element of taking care of the people around you to be able to move things forward.
Yes.
It's probably a different proportion of your role compared to someone who does have direct reports. But the more we take care of people, the more they can take care of business. And that's why shift is so important.
Yes.
It's so important for us to think about the people around us and really shifting our perspective that we're here to take care of each other.
And that shift is hard to do. Right. And like we said, this is really where the work happens. But at the end, we get the reward of sustaining, right? Which is our third phase, is really sustain, is building the systems, the support, the reflection that reinforce that change.
Yeah. And that's the part where, we often talk about, like, you get to look back, like when I was doing the coaching check-in, like, think back to where this person was. That's what I did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, remember where were you struggling? What was hard? Like, where are you now?
Yeah.
That's helping them sustain the direction they're going and the journey, because it can be hard. There is a lot of chaos. But the systems around them, like, they are using the tools so that they have the right systems. It's not just relying on them to remember things.
Right.
They're working on the people within the organization to help support and be speaking the common language and have this shared vision.
Yes. This is where I like to think about, you start to think about, like, the ways of working, or how to incorporate this into who you are as an organization, or how you show up in certain situations, where it's built into, this is who we are. And that takes work to do. And it takes intention to say, when are we going to talk about this thing? When are we
Yeah.
going to, give feedback? How are we going to give feedback, and how is that actually built into the way that we do formal feedback? I love it in the conversation. I mean, it's the end of the year, so I know a lot of people are even talking about like performance appraisals. And one great shift that I've seen over the years around performance appraisals, even though, there's a lot of conversation around performance appraisals and like culture and that type of thing. We won't get into all that. But one shift that I saw that I really like is when performance appraisals take into account the how. Yes, you met your goal, but if you ruined all the teams, right? If half the team quit in order for you to get that goal, not great, right? But if you led with purpose, right? If you led with heart, if you took care of your people, even if you did not reach the goal, but you took care of your people along the way, you don't have any retention issues, your people are engaged, right? And of that piece of the how, that's so important. And that's an example of how you can sustain the importance of, if the how is really important to your organization, which it should be. If it's not, call us. We need to talk, because that's something that is actually built into a system on how the organization gets things done, where a leader is forced to think about, how are we getting things done? Did we do things where we break people down, or did we do things in a way that build people up?
Yeah. I think this is where culture lives. This is the, who are we? Like, how do we show up? It's not always the like, what do we do when no one's looking? Yeah, that's a part of it, but it's the whole like, what do we stand for?
Yeah.
Because if, I think about, I'll go back to sports analogies. We just had the opening tournament for hockey, high school hockey this weekend. And not that we experienced this what I'm going to share, but this is not uncommon in hockey or other sports where, right, like the other team maybe wins, but they've piled up penalty minutes. They've had cheap shots. They're chirping everybody. They're doing, like hits after the play. They're getting players kicked out. Like, I don't know about you, but like those are moments when I'm like, ooh,
Right.
like that doesn't make you feel good about the win. And even if like even the loss makes us feel like, like that it's just icky.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's what we think about, because we are so stuck on only leading with KPIs. Did you make it or did you not make it? That doesn't tell the whole story.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And I think that's why there's such I'm going to say like one, a gap, but two, like leaders who really are hearts and human centric have this longing for, what are the metrics that actually are more meaningful to tell us if we are aligning with our how and aligning with our, this is what we stand for.
Yes. Yes. And that's how we connect, right, with our clients and help our clients connect that to their teams on, how do I lead in this way with heart? Because we know, I mean, we didn't like create this, right? Like we have resources and data to show that when leaders lead from purpose, when they lead from this sense of well-being for themselves and their teams actually perform much better, right? They're more productive, they're more in line, they have a common goal, right, that they can march towards, which helps them be more productive. You see more engagement, you see less retention issues. Like, we have the data to support that. The problem is, it's hard to do. And even as we're working on ourselves, we're working on our teams through, spark and shift, without having sustain. I love the way you say, Jill, like, this is where culture lives. Because if we're not able to sustain it, we're going to go right back.
We do. And it's the classic case of like, there's an empty space, something's going to fill it. So we either fill it and be intentional about filling it, or it's just going to get like whatever's kind of left over and happening in the moment. Like we know that's what happens when it comes to behaviors. And it's not just us. Like, coming from poultry, we've talked about like, how do you eradicate salmonella from chicken forever? Right. Or even intestinally, how do we do it? Well, here's the thing. We know when we get rid of one salmonella, the other one's like, good home right here. Boom, I'm in. So if we don't intentionally put something else there, we're just going to keep having the same thing show up. So when we think about food leaders and what we have to let go of, we have to be very focused and intentional on like, what are we filling that space with?
And that's what we focus on in Sustain.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's also why our method works.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Which I think is a differentiator, because that's, we always say we don't do training. Like if you want forgetting curve to take over and for that big gaping hole just to have whatever come filter back in, yay, go train.
Right.
But if you're intentional about like, I actually do want to fill that space intentionally, then that's where the Catalyst method and our coaching and the other uniques that we bring to the table are going to get you where you want to go.
And it's such a big part, because I mean, maybe that's a part of letting go, right? How do we let go of the constant training, right, without meaningful practice and reflection and all the aspects that we need that really the Catalyst method brings in, because we've been there. I actually just read an article. I can't remember who it was, but I just read an article that said something around the putting like root cause as training, like needs to be trained, is actually preventing us from solving the issue. Which, for people who are like problem solving nerds, which I definitely feel like we're in that camp, just because of our, our background in food and working with problem solving tools. But it's one of those things that's like, it's like the worst to see, this team needs to be trained, or we're going to retrain. If you're retraining, if you continue to train, and you get the same results, isn't that the definition of insanity?
Right. That's the like, what do you need to let go of to have something else that can serve you better?
Exactly. To get off of that hamster wheel.
Yes. Well, gosh, we only have a few minutes left. So, I always ask the question, like, what's something that you're ready to release and why? Especially as we think about letting go.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I think about, and especially as like Catalyst continues to grow and connect with more clients, we have many people that work with us, either on the consulting side or on the coaching side, in different aspects, and we are continuing to grow. So even as we think about what's happening right now, right, and how do we let go of certain parts, right? How do we be planful, right? Be mindful and set people up for success. But even thinking about how do we let go, and it thinks about just my role in food safety and quality, right? Where we want to hold on to things, right? Like we're the best, we're the expert, we're this, when in reality, other people can learn, right? Other people grow, other people do know. How do we really lean on other people for that help? So I think for me, and this is something that, I have to go back, just like your example, Jill, of like going back and thinking about like, what are some things that I'm holding on to that I need to let go when it comes to like doing things by myself, right? Or doing this action, maybe even thinking about around my home, right? Like, what do I need to stop doing and let someone else do? Hire someone, or, let Theo take it on, whatever it is, let Tiana take it on, right? As she's learning, that I need to let go of. It's something I love this time of the year too. And I love it that we have our reset week coming up, because like even myself, right, I'm going to go through and ask myself those tough questions as I go into 2026.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? What are you letting go of?
Oh gosh. Right. What's the one thing that would be good to let go of? So I'm reading this book, The Art of Possibility. And one of the things it talks about is, because humans have this tendency to need to always label or grade or, compare, that it really limits our possibilities.
Oh, okay.
So I have this, heightened awareness around this right now about like, how often am I applying labels? How often am I creating really kind of comparison places? And that's usually with labels like good, bad.
Yeah.
I get an A or I get a C. Just there's all kinds of things.
Yes.
And I want to think about those more so that I can be ready to release those. Because
I love that.
Otherwise those keep dividing us versus bringing us together.
Yes.
And providing, really possibilities for us and for others.
That's something to think about, right? Yeah. I don't like the labels of good and bad and right and wrong, because it's like, it's so subjective, and it's based off of stories that you put in your head, or how you learned, or how you grew up, or what society, so this whole idea of like, yeah, how do you eliminate not just those labels, but other labels, and how is it impacting possibilities?
Yeah, and of course, I say that and I think about, like, earlier we were talking about some of the things to release, like firefighting. And yes, I'm
Mm-hmm.
labeling firefighting as disruptive and stress inducing and all those things. Even there, like, is there a different way I could look at firefighting?
Right. Yeah.
And I haven't necessarily done that. And I think there are people who are really good at firefighting, and that's where they like to live. And that can be cool. But I think as leaders, it's our responsibility to recognize that's not how everybody will
Mhm.
interpret that. That's
Right.
not where everybody wants to live. And so we do need to, like, be more open to what are the actual things happening and the possibilities that could exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. I like that. So of
Mm.
course we want to know, those who are listening, watching, put in the chat, what's a leadership habit you're ready to release?
Mhm.
Or what do you need to release? Right? As you think
Yeah.
about your journey and through the conversation we had today, whether it's a habit or whether it's, something that you just need to let go of so that you can be a better leader.
Yeah. And what we let go of makes room for who we can become.
Mm-hmm. 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 And even as we think about, taking it one step farther, as we think about the different phases of the catalyst method, from spark, shift, and sustain, which part felt most relevant to you and where you are right now in your journey? Of course, we
Ooh.
want to know.
We do. And if you're curious more about that, of course, join us for Reset Week.
Yes.
It starts tomorrow. It's free. You'll walk away
Mm-hmm.
with, really a leadership growth plan for 2026 that you can actually use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Action steps, moving from theory to action.
Yes. And if you're like, gosh, next week doesn't work, then you you should sign up for our leadership summit. You
Mm-hmm.
should. I'm going to should
Mm-hmm.
on you. You should sign up for our leadership summit, which is February 18th. And the reason I bring that up is because I know through the month of December, there is going to be early bird registration, but it's for email subscribers only.
Mm-hmm.
So you sign up to be on our email list and make sure you confirm your subscription.
Yes.
If the email goes to spam, you're not going to get the early bird promo. You're just going to be
Mm-hmm.
thinking and waiting for it, but it's not going to show up. So if you're not getting more than just that initial, hey, thanks for signing up, then check and see what's going on.
Yes.
Because we
Make
want to
sure.
make sure that you get to be able to join us and get the early bird rate.
Yes, yes. This is our second year doing our leadership summit, and we're super excited about it. We heard such amazing feedback, and I know people cannot wait to get in. So make sure you're on our email list so you can see that early bird.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we host these events because we know culture doesn't change unless leadership does.
Mm-hmm.
And leadership won't shift unless you let go of what's holding you back.
Yes.
That's real talk coming from us.
That's real talk. That's real talk. And so we always want you to know that if there is something that sparked for you, share it with someone who's leading in food, right? That's leading with heart, leading with grit, and want to maybe let some things go and become a better leader. Share this. Subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to our podcast so that you won't miss an episode. And remember, because when leaders grow, culture change. And that's
Certainly
what we do
does.
here.
Yep.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Thanks
great
for
rest of
joining
your
us.
day and week.